Yes, we are live now. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whichever the part of the world you are. I'm actually honored to be a part of this community because this Azure developer community doesn't even just focuses on technology on Azure itself, but we also focus on some open source tools as well. And I think probably we have a lot of sessions coming up this month, and its main motto is to make you learn, network, and upskill. It's the way in which the community works, and that's how we work too. And there are no other things because it's been a very short time now, but we are a community of 6,000 plus 100 plus cities, and only one community which is making impact with lot of members out there. I think if you are joining this session, it's not because you are just here to learn something new. You are here to upskill yourself. It's everybody has an access to an Azure portal right now. If you just go and flick your card up, you have it. But in this approach, what we give for the community events and the things like that, we basically focus on upskilling you as a professional. And right now there are a lot of events coming up. There are tons and tons of events that are going on different open source tools, techniques, and there's a lot of events coming up this month, and they are yet to be updated soon. So our team will be updating it soon as well. So if you want to join this community, do join here. This is the community page where we are in 100 plus cities. The partnering communities are here. The past events, yep, you can see all the past events that we have done. You can go back, watch it right there. And this is the list of all the community organizers here. So you guys can go there and check out. And there's a speaker bureau here. If you are interested to be a speaker, hop in as a speaker and just give us the RSVPs, and also the CFPs for the session will get you up and running as a speakers. So right now I'm with Mallikarjun sir, who is an amazing professional who has years and years of experience in working on different technologies and different communities also. And he's also a Microsoft certified trainer. He's an amazing person in terms of Azure because every Monday he organizes something as an Azure Mondays in Azure Qatar community, which is also recognized from the Microsoft. And I'm honored to have him on this session so that we
Thank
can
you.
get that knowledge of what this entire framework or entire technology was all about. So it's all about this technology. And right now, thank you so much, sir, for giving me this session.
Thank you, Vishwas. Thank you for having me here today. I'm absolutely delighted. This is the first session I'm running with this community. Yeah, I've been running here. Every Monday the community events happens here, but soon we will join and we'll try to run some events in even Bangalore community or the entire Azure DevOps community in Dev community in India. Yeah. Yes. Hello,
Sure.
everyone. Good evening. Salam alaikum. Good morning. Yeah, wherever you are. Yes, we'll start with the session, Vishwas, or
Sure,
we'll
sir.
wait for
Sure. You can
another
start with
minute.
the session. No, you can start with the session. There are 40 watching right now.
No problem. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I know this is the one of the Azure Kubernetes service which is now quite catching up in the market. Where you see the most of the platforms which are running on AKS now. So we thought of running one session about AKS. AKS itself is quite a big thing. It takes time to discuss when we want to go deep dive into Azure Kubernetes service. It takes in an hour. Definitely we cannot do that. At least it may take 10 to 20 hours of a video. So I thought of putting some quite important things when you are trying to deploy into your production services. What needs to be considered when you're deploying an AKS instance into your production or an dev or non-production environments. I took two kind of a planning. Today we are going to discuss how do you plan when you're trying to deploy your AKS services into the production or non-production. So the Q&A comes first. People have to understand these are the community events which we will be discussing about quite a few topics, but most of the time we are allowed to hear your questions. So we work in a real-time world, and we are here in the community to address your questions, so that we help you to get along with this cloud journey, knowing about this AKS, or you have any real-time environment problems. We are trying to address this using this community. So feel free to post the questions. I'll try my level best. Not everyone is 100% in this, in this tech world. I'll try my level best to answer your questions. In case if I'm unable to answer, definitely I'll come back to you on the YouTube channel by posting my questions. Please don't hesitate. You can post it. That is where the this community channel. That is where my motto. I mean, even I run the community channel. That is a motto which I always stress out. To have these sessions to be interactive, right? It is not that just presenting the slides. I'm a little hesitant to present the slides. Even the first to my first and second, even I felt myself bored to run through the presentations. So I just want to make it more interactive and live. So that is how I've taken the approach. Please put down your Q&A questions. So definitely I'll try to answer in between. Don't wait for the last. Don't wait for Q&A section. Yeah. So today this is the agenda. We'll stick to the agenda. This is the we'll discuss about AKS and then AKS cluster. We have two variants. One is you can deploy it as a private cluster or a public cluster, and the node pools, which plays the crucial part when you're deploying your AKS, where your workloads will be running. Yeah. This is myself, Mallikarjun Reddy Tunga. You can call me Mallikarjun, or people call me here Malik. So I have these are my this is my little experience. Also, I am the Microsoft Certified Trainer today, starting today. Happy to share with you. And these are my channels. I mean, I have a YouTube channel. You can follow my videos there. And if you want to connect with me, this is my email ID, and I'm available on LinkedIn. In case if you need any help or community help, you can write me. Definitely, I'll when I get a time, definitely I'll reply to you. And this is my I have 14 years of experience working with various platforms. I'm the from the middleware background, which comprise of Linux and Windows. Now we are into the cloud world. Cloud journey has been started, and whatever I do today, which is without DevOps, the day my day doesn't go on. So anything which I do today, there should be a DevOps attached to it. So I'm the DevOps player here, kind of an expert. And also, I mean, when you plan something, definitely we in the current environments we try to plan microservice-based architectures, which is a cloud-ready journey. When you're planning the new applications, so definitely we have some applications which will be sitting that needs to be done using the lift and shift to the cloud journeys. So that is one of the things. But in case if we are planning, definitely we plan, how we can adopt DevOps and how we can adopt microservice architectures by deploying into the containers. So we are in the containers world and the DevOps, So these all about me. You can connect to me and we can have a little chat in case of anything you want. I guess you have seen the agenda. So yes, AKS, Azure Kubernetes service. Azure Kubernetes is one of the, Azure provides you one of the container out of many other services. Azure provides you, this is one of it. Let's go to the portal. If you try to create a service in Azure. So if you go to containers, you have these many instances. Put a little above. Yeah. So these are the, if you want to deploy your container, so these are the available services which you have with Azure. Today we are going to discuss about the Kubernetes service. What is the difference between a container instance or, let's say a web app? The Kubernetes cluster is, you will get that management console. You'll get that complete managed container instances. So let's say if you're going with a web app or a container instance, you can have only a single instance nodes. But when it comes to Kubernetes, you can have your deployments. You can define your deployments. You can have your auto scheduling. You can have your horizontal scheduling when it comes to Kubernetes. When there is a load on your application load, you can set your horizontal part scaling. Those are the many other features which are available in Azure Kubernetes when you want to try to the AKS, right? So for today's agenda, we'll try to understand what is this private cluster or public cluster, right? Let's try to go with this, right? So meanwhile, what we will do, we'll try to deploy in the backend we'll try to deploy a private cluster, while in the front end we'll try to deploy the sorry, my bad. So I will go to my platform. Let's try to create one. AKS cluster. Okay, let's create one AKS cluster in the backend. So let's say I'm going to create the private cluster. Private cluster is to VLR demo.
Sir, a little zoom on the text.
Yeah, sorry. Hope I'm just creating, this is the using Azure DevOps. I'm trying to deploy one private cluster. Today's session, we are not covering Azure DevOps, but anyway, just, I tend to create any resources. Most of the 99% I try to create with DevOps. That is how I said my day in DevOps goes. Without DevOps, my day doesn't go. Yeah. So let's let the AKS private cluster created. So meanwhile, we'll discuss this. When it comes to AKS, when you understand I'll give you some the architecture. The Azure Manage. What is Azure Manage? What is customer managed? The master nodes, when you call about a Kubernetes cluster, there will be a master nodes, and then you'll have a worker nodes, which is nothing but a user application workload nodes. So the Azure manages the master nodes, and then you will have a connectivity to API server. So you will not be able to log in into any of the master nodes of the Kubernetes cluster which you're going to deploy, but you will have a control on the user nodes, a node pools where the customer managed. And in this case, I mean, the connectivity between the Azure managed API server or the customer managed nodes, either you can choose like a public or a private endpoint. Means you can bring your Azure managed services into your VNet. Basically, you're going to create your private endpoint for your API server connectivity. That we will see here. So when it comes to Azure managed, either you can go with the public connectivity or with the private connectivity. Means you are bringing the Azure managed master nodes connectivity into your VNet integration. So the complete secure layer you can create, and then you can have the private AKS cluster connectivity with the master nodes. Okay, this will run anyway. Let's go with this. Right. Let's create a web. So what I'm doing, AKS demo dev01. So based on the region, the Azure services always depends upon the region. Maybe SKUs and anything you have to check based on the region. So now I'm selecting the West Europe, and I'm selecting the availability zones. When you're planning your AKS, either you can plan by deploying your Azure AKS without zones, or you can plan your AKS to deploy on the zones. What happens when the zones are nothing but the West Europe region has 3 zones, which are distanced. It's kind of 3 different data centers, and it has its own physical connectivity, network, storage, and everything. When you want to plan the HA, right? Basically, when you're planning your HA based across in the West Europe 3 regions, you can select your, let's say you are having 3 nodes, okay? In your AKS node pool, you are planning to deploy 3 nodes, and you can plan those 3 nodes to the zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. What happens in case if your zone 1 node goes down? So that is how you can have your availability. If you're not planning to have your zones deployment, then the high availability is kind of a trade-off. I mean, for what reason you're not selecting zones, and in case if you're not selecting zones, it's all about the trade-offs. I mean, how you want to deploy your AKS. With the zones, you will get the high availability of the AKS cluster nodes, user node pools. So for this example, I'm trying to select zones here. So these are the various versions which are available in AKS. I mean, I think you see there are whenever let's say when it comes to 19.9, 19.11, the live logs. AKS as Azure has released a live logging on the cluster pod. When you go to that, you can see the live logs. So like that, there will be features which are being released by Microsoft. So that is where these versions. You can find in the release notes of AKS version what is the differences between each of the version. For today's, we are just selecting the 1.2.7. Okay, here the size. Okay, when it comes to your node size, so here you have to plan your node. Okay, how much your, let's go back there. Okay, so when you are planning your AKS cluster, the in the AKS you will see the pods which are running in your AKS. Okay, when you are running a pods in AKS cluster per node, you can run 250 pods. Okay, so 250 pod, each pod will have its own resource limits. Okay, when I'm talking about AKS per node, when you want to deploy, let's say you want to deploy 30 pods inside a node, and you should plan the capacity, each pod, how much memory or CPU it is going to consume. Based on that, you have to select the VM SKU. That is how you have to plan your the agent pool pods. So the let's today's okay, let's see the, I'm going to select this one for today's demo. And then here you have a scaling method, whether you want to scale auto scaling, you want to do a manual scaling, right? So when it comes to production cluster, Microsoft recommends minimum 3 nodes, which will be required for a production, for high availability and scalability of your cluster. So for let's see, what is the minimum you can create? Minimum you can have one. Okay, that is the. I'll come to that. Why we cannot have 0, but you can have the user pool as a 0. But when it comes to what you call system pool, that needs to be minimum 1. Okay, that is required. In case if you want to add any other node pool, we can add it. I think we will add it later. What we have done, we have just entered the we have selected the West Europe region, and we are going to deploy it to zone 1 and 2, and we have selected the Kubernetes version, that is the AKS name, and then we have selected standard BTMS with the node 1 node we are taking, for example, or let's say we take 3 only. Yeah, and then go to node pool. This is our node pool. Okay, here when you're deploying your node pool, okay, you have to plan, okay, what is the nodes per node you are going to run. Okay, so when I say, I mean, what is the max pods need to be run, then this is the relation between the subnet where you want to deploy your pods. Okay, each pod is going to consume the IP from the subnet which you are going to deploy, right? Let me see that. Okay, so as I said, 1 second, for example, okay, let me go there, different session. Let me open multiple sessions. Okay, let's go to my network RG. One of the, I have deployed one private AKS cluster. And if you see here, right, I have only one instance. I have the instance name, which is a VM scales instance name is 0. And it is consuming, if you see the IP starting from 04 to 35. So almost 35 IP addresses are already being consumed from the subnet. Okay, but are we really running this much of load? No. What happens when you design your, the AKS node pool? Let's go to the AKS node pool. Yeah. Okay, in the backend, it is creating. It is taking 6 minutes. AKS cluster is being created through a private cluster we are deploying. Meanwhile, okay, 128 GB. Where is the limitation? Okay, so I selected max. The max pods per node is 30. But really, I just deployed my cluster, and if you see the subnet consumption, the IP consumption, it is already occupied. So it means it reserves the number of pods which are going to run in your cluster from the subnet. So it means you will not be able to use, even though you are not deployed any pods, any application workloads in your AKS cluster. However, those IPs are already pre-reserved, so you will not be able to use it. That is the reason when you're planning your AKS pod, you need to plan the network. Generally when you're creating AKS cluster, we have two options. One is the kubenet, and then there is an Azure CNI. When you select an Azure kubenet option when you're creating an AKS, the kubenet will create its own network. Okay, you'll not be able to select the Azure virtual network subnet. So that is one thing. And the another thing, when AKS is being created using kubenet, by default you will not add Windows node pools. That I'll come to that. Now we have two network, right? One is Azure CNI and one is a kubenet. And if you see the differences here, by default you can have 110. Okay, but Azure CNI, when you are using Azure CNI, how many pods you can deploy minimum is 30. Yeah, so this is the configuration which you can do. And using Azure CLI, you can go up to 250. But when it comes to portal, Azure CNI, you'll not be able to do that. So either you can do using Azure DevOps, or you can do Azure CLI when you want to configure the max pods. Okay. From the portal, if you're trying to do, it's just max 110. Let's see that. If you see here, I think it is able to do. Okay, it has taken up. Yeah, I think max pod it is available now. It's changed. Okay. Yeah, fine. So now this is what it is. I mean, the max nodes when you're running, then you need to have that many. Let's say now you have selected 250 pods. So 250 pods means you need to select a subnet of Azure subnet which has 250 plus 5, right? So let's see that. And now we have selected 250. Let's go to the screen here. Anything is there? Yeah. Now enabling virtual nodes. Virtual nodes is nothing but you want to have the container instances, bustable container instances. If you want to run that kind of a sort of a load, you can enable the virtual nodes. Okay. There's a different concept, or maybe in another section we'll try to discuss about how to utilize virtual nodes in AKS cluster. Yeah. Today we're not selecting any virtual nodes. So here, authentication method, if you want to have a service principal, you have your client ID, client secret, you can use that. Let's say you want to use the system managed identity, you can use that. Okay, and you want to have AKS cluster enabled with your Active Directory or back access, you can enable that here, right? And this is one of it. If you are an Azure tenant, you have Active Directory, and if you want to have the AD groups, right? You want to have administrators to the cluster. Let's say you have, right now I don't have any, I'm not using any tenant AD group. In case if you have in the enterprises, you will have your groups. Let's say AKS is maintained by an middleware administrators or DevOps administrators. So you can have that, so that those users of AD users can belong to the administrators of that particular cluster, right? This is the option while you're selecting. You want to bring the AD users into the administrator groups. Okay. So encryption we are not talking about. I think in August I'm running a Microsoft Reactor session which we'll discuss about that there. Maybe I'll share you the link with Vishwas. Vishwas can put on the community. So there is a three series which is going to come in August, which is planned. We'll be talk about the how securing the VM workloads in Azure. Talk about a VM or an AKS. All this encryption we'll talk about that. Yeah.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, we talk about the network, right? What we have, either a kubenet or a Azure CNI. So by default, AKS cluster can use an kubenet. As I told, kubenet, when you select a kubenet, it creates its own VNet and subnet. Okay. Let me show you that. I already deployed one, for example. Yeah, I think this private cluster is deployed. Yeah, we have the AKS created. Yeah. So this is the AKS which is created, right? WL Bangalore demo AKS. Okay, we'll come to that. Now we have deployed AKS through a private AKS cluster using DevOps. So what I was telling, I mean, if you see here, let's go to resource groups. Right, DevOps AKS RG. So the first one, first cluster, right? This is deployed using the kubenet for the today's demo, right? And if you see here, this is the Kubernetes network plugin is Kubernetes. Okay, let's go here in a different screen. Yeah, so sorry. So this is the one. So this is AKS demo dev 01, which is running on a Kubernetes, right? And if you see the, this is the resource group created by the AKS. I think using Azure CLI 2.1, I think 2.1, or using AKS Terraform, you can define the resource group. But using Portal, you cannot define this resource group. This is generated automatically while creating the AKS cluster, right? Using Azure CLI new version, you can define that in case if you are deploying through Azure CLI. If you see here, there is a virtual network. It has created its own. When you select the Kubernetes will deploy its own virtual network in the workload RG, wherever this AKS workload is running. Okay, let's see the other one. Okay, let's go back. The other one, the other one AKS demo 2, which I have selected using Azure CNI, right? So Azure CNI, if you see the CDR block, okay, 12.16, what is it? That is what I was showing. Great, that will be closed. Vishwas home, I'm not, okay, right? The speed is a little fast. Do you want me to slow down?
Yeah, sir, you can slow down, but like, yeah, this is fine, sir. I
Yeah,
think there are
thank
some
you.
questions about what are pod. Yeah, I think this is like the higher level overview for
One
all the
second,
other
let me come
guys.
back there.
Yeah, the Q&A session. Wait,
Yeah.
I'll pop it up in the
I can,
screen here.
yeah, I can go to comments and I can go
You
comments and
can't
check
go.
that,
Wait,
right? Yeah,
I think you can't go to comments now. But yeah, I'll put it
yeah,
on the screen. Wait, sir.
no
I
problem.
think
No, yeah,
what's
I'm able to see the
the
comments. Yeah, I think I'm able to see the comments. I'll try to answer once this is done in between.
use case
Yeah.
like when you have a microservice and deploy it on a container, you can manage the oh, he said the answer. Fine. What is
Okay.
meant by pods?
Okay, a pod is nothing but a workload. Okay, when you let's say it's, Nginx you're deploying, let's say you're deploying your Redis workload. That is nothing but a pod. Pod can have multiple containers. Pod will have a single IP and a data disk. On that, this IP and data disk can be shared between the number of containers running inside a pod. Okay, a pod can contain a number of containers. So where your real workloads are happening, that is the Kubernetes orchestration of a pod. What is there is a question called is there a difference between pods and nodes, right? Pods runs
Cluster
on the
also.
nodes. Yeah,
Cluster
Vignesh
also.
Nagaraj. Yeah, Vignesh Nagaraj is asking, is there a difference between pods and nodes? Yeah, definitely there is a difference. Pods will be running inside the nodes. Okay, nodes are nothing but the your compute, where your real work, you need to have a virtual machines, right? Virtual machines where your virtual machines will be hosting your container workloads. That is where the pods will be running inside. Yeah, could you please tell us the relation between cluster, pods, nodes? I'm coming there now, but till there I'll answer that question, then we'll come back again to the questions. Okay, so we were discussing about the now I have deployed the what you call second, which is on the Azure CNI. So this is the subnet. If you go here, this is my virtual network. So the second cluster which is using, this is what the cluster. If you see the AKS agent pool, VM instance 0, which is taking from the 11.1.16, and there is a subnet called here. This is the one which I have deployed the VNet and subnet. This is 11.1.12.4, right? If you go here, yeah, this is the Azure CNI network which is being used, right? And also you can go to the node pool. In the node pool also you'll see the configuration. What is the network configuration, you can see there. Okay, so you see here, so this is the VNet name which I shown here, and this is the subnet. When you go to your overview of your VNet, you will get the consumption details of your what are the IPs which are being reserved or already consumed from the this particular VNet, right? If you go here, this is the agent pool, and this is the virtual network, and this is the subnet. Okay, so this particular, as I was telling, max and 30 pods are been reserved. Let's go back to the Yeah. So this is the two networks. When you're creating your cluster, you need to select either Kubernetes or Azure CNI. When Azure CNI, if you're selecting Azure Container Networking Interface, as I said, when I said my node pool 30, right? Every pod gets an IP address from the subnet and can be accessed directly. This is the advantage when you're selecting your. So let's say you're having a VNet and you have multiple subnets. So let's say your application is running on a different subnet, and you have your AKS running on this subnet. So securely between two subnets, you can create a energy, and then you can have the connectivity between application subnet and the AKA subnet, right? In case if you want to directly connect to the pod which is running instead of load balancer, you can access that. These are the two differences when you are selecting the network, right? Yes, I was telling the planning, right? How you plan, okay? When you want to plan the cluster, when you are selecting the agent pool here, where we are creating the AKS cluster. So let's say you are selecting the Azure CNI. Okay, let me go back here to the dev. So there is another, using node pools. You cannot add a Windows node pool when you are using a kubenet, right? That is one thing. You see here, this Windows section is disabled. You will not be able to add in case if you want to run any Windows workloads, right? Windows pods or a .NET, a core .NET services, you want to run any Maven framework pods, right? Those things you cannot run when you are using a kubenet. That is the currently it is available in only when you are selecting the Azure CNI, right? Azure CNI. When you select Azure CNI, you can add the Windows pools. That is one thing. So here, when you're planning your cluster, as I said, you have to plan your IP address first, right? When you're selecting Azure networking, you have to plan your IP addresses. Let's say you are going to deploy. This is the simple calculation. Why I do need n plus n and then plus one. Okay, when you are upgrading, what happens? A new node will be deployed. When a new node means, okay, so I'll come to that. Let's go to new node where we are here. Okay, I'm selecting Azure CNI and I'm going to select this VNet, right? I have the already one created. So what it is saying, if you see here, the subnet is not large enough to support all the nodes. Why? If you see here, if you go to the basics, right? What we selected 3 nodes and what is the agent pool? 3 nodes. Each I think we selected 250. Yeah. See the node count is 3 and then we have 250. So almost how many we need? 3 into 250 plus 1. So okay, we'll go to that formula. Right now we have 3 nodes and then 250. So it means each node will be hosting 250 pods and it requires 250 IPs plus 5 into 3, right? When it goes to networking. So this subnet is not having that much capacity. So it is clearly mentioning that current IP address space is having only 507 addresses, but is required 750. You see that? So this many IPs we need to have it. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. I have a subnet which is 24, 23. Yeah, 23 is also not sufficient. Where is 22? I don't have 22. Okay, for this demo I didn't create a 22. Let's change the pool size. Okay, let's go back to the pool and let's reduce the pool size for this demo purpose. We'll take 110. Right, let's take 30. Okay, so while I'm updating it, we are taking a node pool of 3 nodes into 30. So 90 IPs required. Let's go to the networking. Okay, let's so what is saying, for 3 nodes into 30 pods, it requires 98 IP addresses. So this doesn't have it. Then overlap within IP range. Yeah, okay, this is fine. Let's select this one as a 13. This is the container subnet. There's you don't need to worry about this, right? So when we are, because it's conflicting, because the Kubernetes default, the container service will create its own inside the container network with this range. there is no because these are the subnet will be used to communicate between the inside between the containers, within the Kubernetes network, right? Now here we're trying to understand, we're trying to provide an IP to the pod. Okay, so if I select 26 is saying 98 IP addresses, go to 27 is saying 27 addresses. Okay, let's see 25. So 25 is how many IP addresses it has. Let's see that. Let's go to VNets. For this demo, I've created there is network RG. So in the VNet, I've created multiple subnets with the multiple CIDRs, okay, for this demo purpose. If you see these AKS subnets, see how many you are getting when you are creating a CIDR of 24. You will get a 251 IPs, okay. Using 26, you will get this many IPs. You have to consider plus 5, right? 5 will be a Azure reserved IPs. When you create a subnet, let's say, let's go here and I'll show you that. If you see here, the section 5 Azure, when you're trying to create any subnet, right? Subnet requires 5 reserved IP addresses, right? Yeah. So here now what we are trying to do, we are trying to create a 3 pods, and then it requires 98 addresses. So it means 25 will suffice, right? It has a 123. Now what is it? Okay. Dead. Yeah, sorry. So it has 123. Now we have selected 3 nodes and each require 98. Let's go and select that. Yeah, I think we are already there in the 25. Okay. So now you selected, you are planning for a 3 nodes with which each node will have 30 pods. And then you have selected a VNet which has a 123. 98 minus 123, how much? You have another 30 node, 30. No, you will not have any 30 there. So that is the reason, if you're planning for a subnet, right, when you upgrade, what happens? So it will create another new node. Means how much you need, where 3 nodes will be already running here, and then you will have a 4th node which is being deployed into the cluster. Means you need additional number of IPs. Yeah, that is where when you plan. So it means either when you are scaling or when you are upgrading, you need to have the buffer of IPs which you need to plan well advance, or in case if you're not doing that, you have to amend your subnet. Once you're getting a subnets, subnets planning is already done. It is not that easy in the real-time environments where you can amend your subnet, right? This leads to complete recreation of AKS cluster. So this is the importance here. When you're planning your AKS cluster, you have to plan how many pods you will be deploying onto your AKS cluster, and then what are the addresses and IP address planning. When you upgrade, as I said, there's a new node will be created. When you upgrade, a new node will be created. A new node requires the same set of IP addresses. If your subnet doesn't have that pool of available IPs, then you will not be able to upgrade your AKS cluster. Means you will not be able to create any new node onto the AKS cluster. So, and also when we are running the, let's say you decide today you are running 3 nodes and you are having a different workloads coming up and you want to scale up, right? What happens when you want to scale up? You need to have the number of IPs available there. So that is where this is the calculation. When you want to plan your IP addresses of your AKS subnet, this is the simple planning you have to do. Always you have to be ahead. 1 plus number of nodes plus 1 when you are doing an upgrade, and then the number of nodes plus 1 into the maximum pods that node you want to configure. Means you are planning for a scaling also. How many you are going to plan? Let's say in future you are going to plan under 3 nodes or 6 nodes. Based on that, you need to, in this example, if you see the example of for a 50 node cluster, provision to scale up to 10 nodes, right? So it means total 60 here. So you already have a 50 node cluster and you are planning to add 10 nodes in future. So that is how you are doing a planning, and then this is how, I means the subnet of it requires almost 91 IPs. A subnet is required. This is the planning you need to do when you are planning your AKS cluster when it comes to production workloads, right? Yes, coming to the, could you please tell us the relation between cluster, pods, and nodes? Okay. I'll have to go to the first slide. See, when it comes to the cluster, AKS cluster, to answer I and R, the AKS cluster, you have a master nodes which is controlled by Azure. Then you don't need to worry about how that is completely managed by Azure. Okay, that is the cluster pods. And when it comes to the nodes, okay, the customer managed nodes, you can have multiple node pools here. When you say nodes, It is coming nothing but a virtual machine scale set nodes. Okay. A user agent pool is being created. A customer can create multiple node pools. Okay. You want to, let's say you want to run Java workloads in one of the node pool. You want to run Nginx workloads in one other node pool, and you have a Windows workloads which is running on a Windows node pool. So like that, you can create n number of pools, but by default one system node pool should be there. Without that, you'll not be able to have your cluster created. So that also, that system node pool, has to be Unix based node pool. Rest of the things you can create a user node pool based on a Windows or a Linux. It's up to your choice. But when it comes to the system node pool, it should be Unix only. That is the supported right now. In future also, there is no Microsoft is not planning to run the system node pool on the Windows, right? And what are the parts? I think we answered that, Saurav. And then what we have here, can we use Jit Ghosh? Can we use any other network plugins instead of Kubernetes? Yeah, we have an Azure CNI. We can use instead of Kubernetes. Where you want to run the workloads, definitely we have to go with the Azure CNI. Yeah, Azure CNI will give you the edge by running your workloads, Windows workloads too. You'll get that flexibility for creating your workloads, right? Maybe Gyanraj, what is CNI? Is nothing but a container network interface. Azure CNI is nothing but a container network interface, which we are going to select as Azure CNI, right? This is nothing but, you can have, I think the new feature, each pool can also be run in a subnet, which is the new feature available. I think using Azure CLI command, we can run your node pool in a subnet. Means each node pool you can select on a different subnets. You can do that. How many CNI is not that, how many subnets you want to run. If you want to put the question right, you can have a number of Azure CNI subnets where you want to deploy your user node pools, right? Yeah, how many parts do you run in a node? That is what we are discussing here. The number of nodes, how many you want to run in the node, that is selected during the agent pool creation itself. If you go to here, the node pools, and when you click here, this is where you are saying, I'm going to deploy my 30 pods. This is the max pods you're going to deploy, right? This is where you select that option. Okay, can we use external CNI? External CNI? No, there is no other external connectivity there. Gyanraj, what is the orchestration? It is only used for. What is the orchestration? Okay. I'll come to that question. I'll have to check, Anup.
Yeah.
I'll come back to that, Anup, to you.
Orchestration, sir.
What
Container
is
orchestration.
orchestration? Yeah, container orchestration is the Kubernetes container orchestration here. Is for K8s only. Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'll come back to that. Can we do the auto scaling in the subnet during runtime? Auto scaling in a subnet? No, there is no auto scaling in a subnet. There is nothing called auto scaling, but you can increase your subnet. Yeah, if you have the available IPs in your subnet, you can do that. Okay, you can do that. You can increase it manually by going to the subnet. Yeah, when in general production workloads, again, it won't happen like that. I know when you create a number of subnets, right? Let's say you are creating, you have VNet here, and you are going to create a subnets like this. The subnet will be a sequence, right? Your VNet, let's say your VNet is having 1,000 IPs, and you are creating a subnet 1 with 100 IPs, subnet 2, 200 IPs, like that. You go on creating it. You will not have in between. You will not, let's say you created a subnet of the 100 IPs, and you will not leave the pool. Okay, until 400, I will not use. I'll keep it for a buffer, for a future planning, for auto scaling. I will keep it. In practically in real time environments, you will not. You will generally will not happen that. So it's recommended to be prepared, well planned when you're creating your AKS, when you're deploying using Azure CNI, right? I think we answered the questions. I think we were here. We are. I think we are here in the network. So what we have done, we have selected 3 nodes. I'll show you the problem also. Now with this 25 is going to have 123. What we need? 3 into 90. 98 IPs are required. We have 123 here. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and. Yeah, I'm not selecting the private cluster. In case if you want a private cluster, we can select this option. But we are not going to select the private cluster. In case if you are selecting a private cluster, then you can provide your IP ranges, right? Private cluster cannot be accessed. For example, this is my private IP, and I want to see the workloads. Okay, I'm in the internet, but my cluster is private. Okay, I'm trying to open my workloads. You see here, private clusters require the browser running on a machine that access the AKS clusters virtual network. Means wherever we deployed the AKS cluster, the portal where we are accessing this computer also need to be on the same subnet. Unless until you will not be able to access the any of the other, like let's say storage configuration, namespaces, pods, you will not be able to access. Since it's a private cluster, you won't allow to see the information here in the public portal. Yeah, this is blocked. You need to have a virtual machine running, then you can access the portal there. From there you can have it. Or if you are running your bastion services in any subnet, and you can have a subnet connected to the AKI subnet, means you have to do a port opening between both the subnets, then you will be able to access it. Yeah, so that is the authorized IPs. In case if you want to give authorized IPs, you can give the authorized IPs here. When you're creating a private cluster, and you can give authorized IPs. This is a network policy. We have either you can when you want to apply network policy between the pod communications. These are the options available. Since we are selecting Azure networking, we are selecting Azure here. And the integration. Integration is nothing but a container registry. When you want to integrate with the AKS cluster, I already have an Azure container registry created. I'm just selecting that. And then this is the option where you want to monitor your container monitoring, means all the logs will be sent to the log analytics workspace. This is the one which I already have. In case if you don't have, you can create one here. And then Azure policy, we are trying to enforce, Azure policies here using Azure Policy Center. Yeah, afterwards also you can do. Even this, you can disable here while creation, then I'll show you that. Let's disable here and then create it. So what we have done through using DevOps, we created one private cluster in the backend, and during this demo, we try to create with the various options of agent pool, 3 nodes, which has each is 30. So validation is paused. This may take some time to get created. I think I hide the creation. Let's see the one which is already created, right? In the backend using Azure DevOps. Okay, let's see. AKS, Kubernetes services. So let's see what is it created. This is the one, right? AKS cluster, keyword BLR demo. Okay. Yeah. So this is the one it is created. So when we talk about the AKS private cluster or a public cluster, what happens, right? So how do you check whether this cluster is private cluster? This is the private cluster. Private cluster is enabled, and we have selected the policies Azure, and then we have selected Azure CNI here, right? And this has a 2 node pools. Fine. So as I said, there will be a resource group which is created while AKS is being created. Let's go to the resource groups. I think what is it? Okay, this is what BLR demo. As I said, you want to customize, right? You want to customize this, AKS workload resource group. You can customize using Azure CLI, or while using DevOps, you can do that. But if you are creating from portal, this is the auto-generated resource group names. Yeah, it cannot be changed. So this is the private cluster. Let's see here. I think this is being created. The public cluster, what we have did just now. So this is the generally, the cluster workload RG, where here Microsoft recommends you do not touch any kind of configuration in this resource group. In case any changes done here, it may cause to the disruptions to the cluster. It will cause the problems to the cluster. You cannot go. Let's say you have a virtual machine skill set here. You want to change some properties or system tags. That will result in the cluster misconfiguration, and your cluster may not work. Okay. So that is why there is a separate AKS resource group which has been created, and anything if you want to do that has to be done on the AKS cluster instance only. You should not touch anything here. So, okay. So if you see here the Cube API server, we have a private endpoint. So what happened when you create a cluster? Let's go to the first slide. So here you have Azure managed instance, right? We are trying to have a secured connectivity between master nodes and the customer managed nodes. That is where when you create a private cluster, you can communicate via private endpoint. Using private endpoint, your connections can be secured. I think, yeah. So if you see here, this is the private endpoint which is created for the AP server. So this gets the IP. I mean, from where this gets the IP? This gets the IP from the subnet which we selected while creating the AKS. I think this is the IP there. See, this is the IP which is from the VNet subnet which we have inside Azure CN, Azure network, right? So in this we have a system pool, and then you have user pool. Okay, let's discuss about pools now. Meanwhile, that is being created. Okay, so when we talk about pools, okay, what is pool? I hope we are going with the agenda here. Yes. So system node pools are nothing, it requires, the critical systems, critical parts where you want to run your AKS. That is where your system node pool is talk about. A system node pool contains the core services which AKS need to be run healthily, and then you can have your user node pools. Okay, user node pool, system node pools is nothing but all the core services which are running in the system node pool will not be deployed onto user node pools. This can be purely for your application workloads. Okay, there won't be any system services which will be running on a user node pools. For example, to show you. Yeah, okay. So I think I have taken one screenshot. Okay, here. So if you see here, what is this pool name? This is user pool. Just a cluster has been created, and if you see here, these are the services which are running in the user node pool. Whereas a system pool requires all these services to have the cluster function healthily. Yeah. So this is where the difference. These are the workloads will be deployed when you run a system node pool, and these are the let's say OMS agent. What OMS agent is required to monitor your workloads, that is required. And you have Kube proxy. Kube proxy is nothing but you want to have a connected within the cluster, right? So these are the minimum parts which will run on a user node pool, right? You want to deploy an application workload dedicatedly, you can use that on the user node pool. There is no restriction that you should not run any of your workloads in the system pool. Not like that. You can deploy your workloads on system node pool too. Yeah, those are also compute nodes. You can run that. So when you want to isolate your application from system services by placing in a separate node pool, this is what the advantage when you're running the user node pools. So how do you place? Kubernetes will allow you using the tags, taints, labels. Let's say label is Windows, and so as your deployment label is Windows and your node has been labeled as Windows, automatically the deployment will go to the Windows servers. So using the tags labels, you can deploy it. That is a recommended way to schedule your workload. You have a different node pools like a user node pool, system Linux node pool and Windows node pool. So how do you differentiate when your deployments are going on? Using these values, you can do that. Right. So this is the okay. So let's what happened here. That is the node pool. I think we are done with the deployment of our cluster, public cluster, what we created just now. This is Azure CNI, and it is not private cluster. It is a public cluster. So let's see the node pool. So we have selected availability zones and 3 nodes. 3 nodes are running now. Right. Let it be open. So how many we have? We have max 30. Right. We have selected VNet, which has 128 IPs. Now almost 98 IPs will be consumed. Let's see that. Okay, let's go to the VNets. So this is the VNet. So if you see here, so what it does, now 132 to okay, I think there are multiple pools here, multiple pools got utilized. Okay, anyway, now using the subnet, let's filter this AKS subnet, then we'll see that here. So 224. So these many IPs are already reserved inside the subnet, all right? And if you go to subnets, okay, we have, where is it, 128. AKS 26, I think we want, how the subnet name is selected. Let's go back here. AKS subnet 25. Let's go that. AKS subnet 25. You see here how many IPs available now? Previously, we have seen 128 IPs. Now we have deployed the cluster, means it is minus. So 128 minus 98 IPs. Now after 128, we have only 30 IPs available now. Let's try to scale the pool. Let's go to, let's say increase, I'm increasing the node of 4. We're trying to add an additional node. And you see the issue here? It is saying you're running out of IPs. We don't have any IPs available, so you'll not be able to scale the cluster. This is what the problem, right? So that is where the importance of planning. Okay, when you want to plan your AKS cluster, you need to plan properly when it comes to when you're deploying your services to subnet AKS virtual network, Azure CNI network, right? So yeah, that is the, I think that we showcased. And then okay, well, we are talking about the pools. I think this cluster is no more use unless we increase the subnet. We'll not be able to add any kind of uh, node pools here. Let's say we were talking about node pools. Either you can have what you call, as I was discussing, a system node pool where you want to run your core services, that will be deployed only using the Linux version. In case if you are creating a system node pool, that can be Linux. It cannot run on a Windows. Okay. In case if you want to create a Windows, you can create a user pool of Windows. Means what happens? Let's Windows. So here the catch is that you cannot have more than 6 letters. Okay. When you want to create a node pool name, when you're creating a Windows node pool, there are restrictions. You can have only 6 letters with the either numerics and alphanumeric. Basically 6 with alphanumeric. Let's say Win123. You can have that, but not more than that. This is a limitation of the node pool name. So node count will not do that. I'll have a manual scaling. Let's say create one. And then what is the size? And not only that, you need to have the, let's say you are running 30 workloads, each pod is having a 200 MB memory, and you are selecting a small size of compute, which will not suit. Definitely, you need to do a planning of, even the VM size as well. Then it won't, then your deployment will not suit, and then you have to change the, what you call, agent pool again. This is also having the, the same thing, is it? Is having 120 available in 123. Okay. Right. That's 123 user, and then what we will do, we'll say manual and one, and then how many, choose the size, and then optional settings, where we are in, yes, let's say 10. So 10 we are taking. The minimum is 10. Okay. The max per that is the minimum, and maximum is 250. Validation passed. Hopefully we have 10 available IPs in the subnet, which will create. So what happens in the backend, right? If you see here, this is the demo, and you go to the resource group of, as I said, while the cluster creates its own resource group. This is dev 1, right? This is dev 1. Let's go to resource groups. It is dev 1. In the backend, you will see the agent pool. Right now we have only one agent pool. You see here, now the AKS windows is being created. So this is the using Azure CNI. You can have the Windows node pools also being deployed. And you see here, this is the Windows, the operating system which is currently supported on a Windows workloads to run. It is Windows 2019 containers. This is the OS image which will be deployed, right? So here I think it is 1 out of 1. I think it is getting created. You see here. So this is how it is. So now we are able to be deployed where we are, right? Yeah, pools. So in the AKS cluster, you can have your system node pools and the user node pools. What is the difference between them? A system node pool will have your core services, which is required to run your AKS cluster. Those services will be run on your system node pools. In the user node pools, which are required, like let's say monitoring, IP services, proxying, those are the only system parts will be running on your user node pools, so that you have your you can deploy your application workloads to the user node pools. Means you will be having let's say system node pool. If you deployed 2 CPU, 4 GB RAM, then for system nodes itself it will consume everything, right? So when you have your dedicated user node pool, you can have the more compute available when compared to system. It is not necessary. You should not deploy the deployments on a system node pools, but by default a system node pool should have AKS cluster should have one system node pool. You cannot skip that, right? So okay, this is something about the private AKS cluster. That's fine. So this is getting refreshed. AKS cluster. Adding a node pool. So any changes on the AKS cluster, if you want to perform, we have to perform on the wherever the cluster resource group which you selected to create. I selected to create this is the demo AKS RG, and you see your AKS instances created here. And any changes which you want to perform on your AKS, you should do here only. You should not be going and touching the this resource group. There should not be any changes which need to be performed here, right? All the configurations about your cluster, any changes can be done, should be done here only, right? I think it's still being added. So that is about the whole idea about the what do you call, a private cluster and a public cluster, and how do you plan your node pools, right? Node pool planning and the pods when you're deploying your that's what we talked about. And then we talked about system pools and then user node pools. So in the kubenet you will not be able to deploy the Windows node pool, right? No wonder it is taking time. Anyways, I think Vishwas, any other further questions we have? Meanwhile, we can answer.
Yeah. Can we auto scale the subnet during? Yeah, that was the last question.
That was the
That
last
was the
question. Huh?
last question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Here,
Like
I
he
think
gave a scenario of like big billion thing, like some.
very true. Very true. I mean, yes. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, subnet. You can extend the subnet where you have the space. You know, where the same subnet can be extended, where you have your IPs available, which is not being allocated to any of the subnet, because the subnet has a series. Let's say you assigned 1 to 100, so you can assign from the 100 to the next, right? Next available. So you cannot 1 to 100. You cannot. Let's say you have 2 to 4 to 100. You cannot assign like that. Okay. Subnet assignment is unique. That's how it is. So these are all about gents we talked about today. I think I tried to cover something here, something you learned today, or you some takeaways have been there, which is important when you're on trying to plan the AKS cluster creation. As I
Yeah,
said, it is quite crucial. I mean, it is a very tough time, tough, to discuss each and every feature of AKS, here, during such community sessions, right? So
sure, sir.
yeah,
I think even we can do a
yes,
series of
Indrajit.
sessions, and yeah.
Yeah, Indrajit has a question. Yeah, please go ahead, Indrajit. Please ask the question. Don't hesitate.
Could you could you take some certification? Oh, certification questions. Oh, he wants some
Yeah,
certification questions.
yeah. Please go
Could
ahead.
you
Ask
take?
some.
Yeah,
You have a
you
question,
can
or
ask,
you can
or else
ask
he has to
question.
give. Mallikarjun sir has to give, or you have to give. You have to ask any questions on
See,
certification, or else Mallikarjun sir has to give
yeah,
some
right now,
questions.
for this AKS, right now we have a what you call a CKAD and a CKA, CKS. No, I'm saying, I mean, when it comes to Kubernetes, I mean, you have those certifications available. When it comes to Azure AKS certification, is something which we don't have currently.
Hmm.
Okay, great, great.
Fine. I think.
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you?
In case if you have any questions, please ask. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't have questions. Guys, if
no
you have
problem.
any questions, do ask it, or else I
Please do
have some
ask.
set of questions because I was making notes.
Yeah, yeah. That is where it is. I mean, yeah.
I
Please,
was
please. This
making
is
some
what.
notes here, but yeah, if you guys have any questions, you can ask here. Sir, I just want to can you rewind? Okay, how much charging for AK
See,
server?
when it comes
If we
to
use.
AKS will charge only for the nodes, right? For the nodes, nodes in the sense, I think that is one of the question we need to answer. Nodes are nothing but the virtual machine scale set instances, right? I think there is one video which I last session where I talked about VMs and VM scale sets. Okay, a virtual machine scale set is nothing but a group of VMs running inside, right? If you go to instances
Mhm.
here, you see this is the virtual machine which is running inside a scale set. Scale set is nothing but VM scale set. If you understand, it has a set of features which are unique to any instance which are being created inside the scale set. So it will inherit. Let's say you are creating another instance. So it will take the features will be replicated to the instance which you are going to create inside a VM scale set. That's it. That is all about VM scale set. So the charge which is coming from the AKS, there is no charge, but only the workload which you are running for this compute, there will be charge.
Yeah, and like apart
See,
from
yeah,
orchestration, yeah, you can
yeah,
continue.
yeah. Apart from the orchestration, is there any difference between ACA and no ACA? Yes, not only orchestration. AKS gives a lot of other features. You can have your um external connectivities. You can have your integrations. I think, yeah, I think that's all. When it comes to a Azure container instance, they have a single point of failure there. Here you have that high availability scaling. Those features are available.
Yeah, and thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you so
Yes.
much for taking your Sunday and being on the session. I think any questions, sir? Can you? I just had this one
Again,
thing.
Raj,
Like,
thank
can
you.
you show me the
Sorry.
demo of the DevOps?
Yeah, pleasure. My pleasure.
DevOps. Yeah. Can you show
Yeah,
me the
yeah.
DevOps part of that AKS once again? That one part. That's it.
Uh, okay, yeah. See,
Sure.
yeah, yeah. This is the one. I hope the Zoom is okay with you. I will see. This is the my code. This is my the Azure Qatar. This is the DevOps. You can have multiple here. Okay. I try to be organization doing. This is the organization which I have. I think it is taking time. Okay. This is nothing my existing repo. Where this is the Terraform code, for case cluster. Okay, the is parameter, right? Okay, you can define whatever while creating the case here, right? Then you create a case here. Okay, when you're creating a Kubernetes service. Something got lost, or where it's not loading. Azure DevOps is having an issue. Pipelines is not a Vishwash, there is no connectivity problem, right? Me, hear me. Vishwas, you there? I'm lost. Sorry for that.
I'm here, sir. I'm here.
Sorry, Vishwas. I think I got a little glitch on the internet. Apologies for that. Sorry, guys. You're able to see my screen.
Sure,
Vishwas?
sir. Sure. Yeah, I can see, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So sorry for that. Okay. See what happens when you're trying to create a Kubernetes service here. We have given manual inputs, right? Each screen we went on, kept on giving inputs, right? These are the inputs you give. The same thing you have that in the Terraform inputs when you're creating using the Azure. This is called as infrastructure as a code. Okay. So I can create my AKS here. Even I have workloads of Redis cluster creation, something like that. So I have this. This is my code, and this is my. So these are the inputs which we are going to give. Okay. So these are the version. A user, in case if I am a user, I don't want to create in the 20.20.7. I can create. So these are the input parameters. What we are going to give in the portal. The same thing have been given here, right? These are the inputs. You have to tell what is your resource group, and when you are creating your system pool, right? So system pool, what is the size of your, and then what is the number of pods you want to deploy onto your system pool, and what is the pool one node count, how many you are trying to create. And then I'm also creating I'm creating a second node pool, which is nothing but user node pool of type Linux. So these are the inputs which you can, these are all can be parameterized, what is your, in case if you have any secrets, right? You can have the, right now when you create a AKS, you need to have you'll have a Windows username password here. Let me go here. Where is that? You see here, there is a, in case if you are running a Windows nodes and you want to have a login credentials, you can get those secrets. I have my username passwords sitting in a key vault. So I have a key vault integration done in Azure DevOps. So I can get in the dynamically, I'm not showcasing anywhere in the pipelines. So the values are being get during the pipeline runtime, the runtime values. So then this is the pipeline, what we have. This is AKS pipeline. You can have a plan and deploy. If you go here, let's open the deployment task.
This is all from the Terraform, right? Terraform.
Yeah. It is from the Terraform. Yeah, it is in the Terraform, right? As it will give you the plan. Okay, before it gets created, it will tell you, boss, you are given all these inputs, and based on your inputs, I have generated a plan. Okay, so generally, what happens I have two steps basically. One is deploy, one is in plan. For demo purpose, I disconnected that. It is quite easy. When you go to your release pipeline, sorry, we cannot edit it. I have to edit the pipeline. If I edit the pipeline, you have of stages here. You can disconnect them. I mean, it's up to you. Let's say you want to add it there, you can have it before the release. So in this way, you can have your two stages can run, right, parallelly. And if you want to say, I don't want to run, I want to run after stage only, for example. So these are your stage. Let's say these are the stage. So it will go there. So in real time, generally happens, what happens, the release process comes in picture in the production environments. The release manager will look at the plan and he will be approving it. He is the approver there.
Sure, sure.
Then it goes
Got
for a deployment. That's how it is. That is
got
a
it.
deployment pipeline. Yeah, we can do that. Let's really go to the plan once again. Okay, deploy. So yeah, this is the plan. You see here, the private cluster is enabled true. You can see that. I mean, any person who is looking at the plan, okay, he can say that, okay, this is the AKS name which is getting created and it is private. Okay, and right now I selected free tier. It's not a you have a free tier also. We can do that, and you have your tags which can be created. And what we have policy enabled. Yes, we have. Uh, okay, these are the options which you can give. Okay, now I'm selecting my OMS agent 2. So I already have a log analytics workspace which are created. I'm pointing that. So these are all
Sure.
the options which it will show you in the plan. Okay, and then finally, where is it? Azure. Yeah, network policy is Azure. Network plugin is Azure. And role-based access. So this is where it is. You will not see that what is my username and password.
Mm-hmm.
These are the sensitive. It is coming from the key vault. Yeah. Even not only that, I think even SSH key also is there. SSH
Mm-hmm.
key.
Yes,
You see
yes.
that Linux profile. When you are creating a private cluster, you want to authenticate using SSH key, your to AKS cluster. You can have that key created in a where is the vault? Let me open the vault. I think we are running. I hope
No problem, sir.
people are not getting bored about why this guy is running too many things. So if you see here, this is the key vault. Guys, there is a session which is coming in next Monday about the key vault in the Qatar region. I think I'll ask Vishwas to post. I'll be discussing about Azure Key Vault and its uses in the where is it? Where,
Yeah, I'll post it in the LinkedIn events
yeah,
also.
yeah, LinkedIn
I think,
events.
yeah, he has asked for to see a webinar on Terraform and Azure. Fine.
I think that is already there, but we can do that. Where is my secrets? Yeah.
Got
You
it.
see here, these are my secrets. Okay. So
It can't be shown.
yeah, let's say it cannot be seen. Even me myself, I cannot be. Once it is done. So in case if you want to download backup and then I can retrieve it. But during the pipeline run, these are all using Terraform will retrieve them during the run. Okay, during the
Hmm.
runtime. Never it will be complete secured pipeline. Since you are running a
Got it.
in cloud and you have your SSH file downloaded from the key vault, and using that SSH will be pushed to the AKS nodes, so that when you're trying to authenticate, let's say you have a Linux box and you want to from the Linux box you want to join to the AKS nodes, right? Using that SSH file you can log into that. For that purpose, this is the file.
Got it.
This is the thing. So this is how I am doing. Even I'm giving a role assignment, contributor role assignment. When it comes to Azure Container History, you want to AKS want to push the images, or you want to do any read write access. Azure, I think in the last session I have given detail about Azure Container History and AKS using Azure DevOps. What kind of permissions we have there. So Azure Container History will have a permissions like a reader, image pusher, imager cleaner, and then contributor. So I'm giving a contributor access there for the AKS.
Got it,
So
sir.
these are all will be created. These are all will be created. So
Sure. I think.
right now, if you see you can secure them in Terraform also. You can say when you say sensitive is equal to true, then it will not be shown. Yeah, that is all about
Mhm.
Terraform. Yeah, you can hide the password when it comes to outputs. For the demo purpose, I just kept it. So these are
Hmm.
all can be done. This is about the deploying AKS through Azure DevOps also.
Got it. Got it. Sure. I think this was the best part of learning AKS in depth, because we have all the basics done in all the previous section. I think this was an advanced session. I think you planned it according to the sessions that we had
Yeah.
done previously, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
went through your, complete sessions, what happened in the past. Giving the same repeated session doesn't matter. People, definitely some people will be going through the AKS slides. What is AKS? What kind of features it
Yeah.
has.
I
But
even shared my own Kubernetes one-on-one slides.
yeah, So, but I just
Sure,
thought of
sure.
just planning is very crucial when you plan AKS cluster. It is not that easy when you go live and you want to recreate the cluster instances in kind of a
Yeah,
non-production or production. Dev, it's fine. It's okay.
sure. I think this was
So, yeah,
glad
but
that
another
we
question.
actually did this podcast. Would you like to see some more webinars from Terraform in Azure? That was the question. I
Sure,
think
sure,
there was
sure.
no other
Definitely. I mean,
questions.
we can do that. I think at least I have running couple of sessions. I'll try to plan with Terraform and Azure, at least once in a month. That we'll try to do that. At least 4 series of sessions in. I think we'll try to plan. Definitely, we'll do that.
Sure, sure. I think thank you so much, folks. Thank you so much for all your time. And actually, this is actually a Sunday. We actually want you to come here, get some knowledge, and go out with lot of happiness. And that's where we, as a community, folks, we come up and we just give this kind of sessions to you, folks. And amazing session from Mallikarjun sir. Thank you so much. I think
Thank
one
you.
guy already has become a friend to you, Malli Garu.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
thank you,
much.
Ayan,
Thank
thank
you.
you, thank you.
Thank you
Enough,
so much,
enough.
folks. Thank
My
you so
my
much.
hard work has been done for today. I mean, one thank you will beat all my efforts of today's. Yeah, yeah. Really,
Thank you, Sir
thank
G,
you.
and nice, awesome session. Thank you so much, folks. Thank you so much. We are ending the
Yeah,
session now. If you have any doubts, any queries, reach out to us in the LinkedIn. If you want any session, reach out to me in LinkedIn. We'll just get the sessions done.
we'll
Thank you
try
so
to
much,
plan.
folks.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
we'll try to plan.
See you in the next session. Hopefully. Thank you,
Yep.
Vishwas. So
Bye
much energy,
bye.
man.